Guli Dolev-Hashiloni is a Berlin-based Yiddishist and writer. He holds MAs in political science and global history and is a PhD student in history at the Technical University of Berlin. His research about Jewish bars in post-Holocaust Frankfurt inspired an installation he created in Künstlerhaus Bethanien in Berlin. He'll be talking to us about Yiddish in Frankfurt's Underworld. Go ahead, we're really excited.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, basically, I'm currently a PhD student at the Technical University, but I would first say that this presentation about Yiddish in Frankfurt in the 1960s is actually based on my MA thesis that I wrote at the Fire University, which was later also turned into an art installation, as mentioned. And yeah, this highlighted sentence in a 1971 article already reveals, I mean, the main topic of this presentation, which is this quote says, I'll translate from Hebrew, that the biggest bar owner in Frankfurt, the so-called king of the Deutsche Vita, which is a wordplay of the Dolce Vita, of the sweet life, is a Jewish person that speaks Yiddish in a Polish accent. How come? Let's find out together. I will start by recommending a TV series called Die Zweiflers or The Zweiflers. It's a successful and an excellent German series from 2024 that does a great job of portraying the actual Yiddish spoken by the Jewish community in Frankfurt today. And there is a little dialogue there that I would like to present to you. At the first episode, the grandma, which you can see here, is talking to her grandson over the phone. And the grandma and the grandson Shmuel says in German, "You mean in Grandpa's brothel? Du meinst bei Opa im Bordell?" To which the grandma answers in Yiddish, "Oi, nicht auf ein Telefon, die meinst an Musierbetrieb." This is of course in Polish Yiddish, and it means you mean an amusement place. And this little quote already reveals a lot of what I want to discuss, or the issue of this community, namely its connection to sex work and its decline with the generations. So my presentation will be divided into three. First of all, some general information about the Jewish underworld in post-Holocaust Frankfurt. The second part will be looking at the sources, both in the Israeli press and in German sources. And the third part would be a more critical analysis of the way my findings undermine both Zionist and German perceptions regarding She'erit HaPleta, I mean the Holocaust survivors. So, as a brief historical background, it's really only the bits of the full story. As many of you surely know, more than 200,000 Holocaust survivors, mostly from Poland, lived in displaced person camps in West Germany, the so-called DPs, in the immediate aftermath of the Shoah. And the biggest DP camp, I mean, nobody knows for sure because there was no registration, but seemingly the biggest DP camp in West Germany was called Zelsheim, and it was located right outside of Frankfurt, the big German city. Zelsheim today is actually, it was integrated into the city. And due to the dire economical state of defeated Germany, and due to the acute poverty of the survivors that really had nothing, and the survivors started trading goods that they received in aid packages from American and international organizations and swapped them with the German population for vegetables and clothes. And that was the beginning of the black market. Zelsheim was a huge black market hub. And yeah, most DPs, or like most Holocaust survivors, migrated from the camps either to Israel or to America, but a small minority of them that made a lot of profits in the black markets chose to stay and to move to downtown Frankfurt, to the Bahnhofsviertel of Frankfurt, the train station district, which is also the red light district. It was the red light district even before the Holocaust. And in the 1950s and 1960s, they thrived from two semi-illegal lines of business. And the first one was running bars that were known either as cabaret or locale, literally meaning local. And they stretched from fully normal pubs to fully illegal brothels. I mean, there are many who sat in prison, with a lot of in between, including, legal brothels, clubs with erotic dances, and so on. And the second line of business was called Pekalach. It was basically selling repatch drugs mostly as dowry or as bedsheets. And those bars served mostly American soldiers who were stationed in Western Germany at the time, mostly in Frankfurt and its vicinity. And in fact, those bars were also protected by the Americans, who preferred trading with Jewish people rather than with ex-Nazis. And in this sense, the dozens of Jewish clubs that were filled with German sex workers and with American clients are an important site of encounter for what is known as the historic triangle, which is Germans, Jews, and Americans in West Germany after the Holocaust. In the last years, I've researched this hidden history that, of course, I mean, it's a provocative topic, so not so many people have touched upon it, although there are evidences everywhere. And as I described in a piece I wrote in The Diasporist, I later also turned it into an art installation that focused on the connections that this group had to various people, such as the philosopher Adorno that you can see here. That's a part of my artwork. And basically, at the beginning of my journey, Yiddish for me was only a research tool. I used Yiddish to get to speak to those people and to understand all the oral testimonies. But as I gathered more and more documents, I understood that the history of Yiddish spoken in Frankfurt is a fascinating topic on its own. And yeah, some of my earlier thoughts on the topic appeared in Ingeweb. Jewish crime in Frankfurt and its vicinity was a hot topic in Israel's press in the 1950s and 60s in all kinds of newspapers: liberal, socialist, yellow press, elitistic newspapers. And strangely enough, although the Israeli articles barely mentioned, for example, the conditions of the sex workers or the legality of the whole thing, a recurring theme in those articles was Yiddish, as you can see by the highlighted words here. They're all either in Yiddish or about Yiddish. So, for example, Uri Dan's article from the 4th of January 62 claims, first of all, that the bar's working language in Yiddish, and then Uri Dan actually writes down two nicknames or innuendos that were used for women who worked at those clubs. Both are rather offensive, but bear with me. The first one is Chavche. I guess it means little Chava, like the Jewish name. And the second one, more problematic, is Weiße Fleisch, meaning pork. A later article by Uri Dan also mentions the trade in the Pekalach, which is defined by the traders themselves as a trade in Shmates, serving more or less as a synonym here. And he also mentions the Yiddish word for a big robbery, which is bomba. It's even written here as a Jewish word, not as a Yiddish word. But Dan is, of course, not alone. Almost every Israeli article from the time describes that the area was basically full with Yiddish. Elon, writing for Haaretz, described how he used Yiddish to gain the trust of the people he interviewed. Others, for example, in Ha'olam Hazeh, mentioned that the names of all these people in this milieu were actually Yiddish nicknames such as Romek, Bolek, and Shimek. And when realizing this, I started gathering a lexicon of Frankfurt Yiddish slang with additional sources. And because the Israeli newspaper is so full of them, I immediately turned to the German newspapers. But to my surprise or utter disappointment, not a single German newspaper article from the time describes the slang of the Yiddish underworld in Frankfurt. Even when those people were reported in the news, for example, when they were arrested and so on, they were presented as stateless men from Poland. So like a Stadtlose. I mean, the readers, of course, understood exactly what it meant. If you're stateless from Poland, your family name is Buchmann, and the year is, 54, the association is clear. But nevertheless, the word Jewish was not written in the German press, which is an important point. We'll come back to it soon. However, the Yiddish of downtown Frankfurt does appear in the works of a few German Jewish artists, such as, the Zweiflers that I quoted from earlier. And this presentation would not be complete without mentioning Michael Bergmann's bestsellers, the book Die Teilacher and its sequel Machloikes. Die Teilacher was also turned into a film, and both follow Pekalach traders around Frankfurt's red light district and are full with Yiddish and German words. Teilacher, according to Bergmann, is the Frankfurt Yiddish slang for basically Pekalach traders, for traders of small rugs, carpets, and so on. And his book Machloikes even ends with a glossary of all the foreign words that his book is full with. Bergman uses the word Ganef to refer to this milieu, and yeah, I chose to go with him in my works. So I proceeded to conduct oral interviews with videos, children, and so on. And especially for you, I am now first presenting a short lexicon, a short dictionary of the Yiddish of Frankfurt. Those are all words that were used, as far as I know, only in Frankfurt. You cannot find them in normal Yiddish dictionaries. And there are a few interesting stuff here, such as, for example, the word Fineland for Germany, literally meaning an enemy country, or Polish pronunciations of German terms, such as Salzham for Salzheim, which of course has an additional association of salt. Yeah, so now we'll move into the analysis. By now, I've managed to prove, I hope, that the Yiddish that was used by the underworld, by the Jewish underworld in Frankfurt, was unique, but this is perhaps not so surprising. You know, it was the mother tongue, they just kept on developing it. So now I'll try to convince you this whole issue is actually important, you know? First of all, the immediate finding regarding Frankfurt's Yiddish is that the Yiddish in Frankfurt was not simply present, it was very much alive. Due to the self-chosen isolation of the Jewish community, it was the first language of all of the sons of I've interviewed, meaning that it is very different from the post-vernacular Yiddish of the US or Israel at the time, and very different also from the highly ideological Yiddish that remained in Haredi or Bundist communities. This was a non-post-vernacular Yiddish that was, was not highly ideological. And to quote a sociologist called Emmerich, even to this day, there are Yiddish speaking Muslims, like mostly Turks, living in this area of Frankfurt that learned this language from their colleagues or friends. And I will quote another person from the documentary L'Chaim. It's a German TV documentary. Esther in this film spoke about the red light district area of Frankfurt. She herself grew up there. And she says, the pimps and the taxi drivers, the newspaper sellers, they were mostly people who could speak Yiddish, even though they were not Jewish. So that's my first finding. My second finding is that the mere existence of Yiddish in the land of Nazism 15 years after the Holocaust was a sensation, and therefore it was reported as such in Israel. The fact that rich, successful, and sometimes also criminal businessmen spoke Yiddish negated Zionist narratives regarding the weakness of Sherit HaPlata. It negated the Zionist narratives regarding the passivity of Holocaust survivors and of diasporic Jews in general. And very importantly, it negated the anti-German sentiments that were dominating the Israeli society at the time, that deemed it completely impossible for Jewish people to ever prosper in Germany again. But even more telling than the Israeli coverage is the lack of German coverage. And this, of course, relates to the real hot potato here, which is the German anti-Semitism. Back in the 19th century, the founder of Protestantism, Martin Luther, wrote a book called On the Jews and Their Lies, where he claimed, among other stuff, two things. First of all, the Jews seduce and exploit German women. And secondly, that Yiddish is a thieves' cant, a corrupted criminal language that the Jews have developed to conduct their crimes and to fool the Germans. This is, of course, a very dangerous and horrible anti-Semitic hoax that was proven as such by many. But as Berkovich claims, this anti-Semitic myth that brings together Yiddish with the actual thieves' language of Germany called Rottwelsch, this anti-Semitic hoax kept on living in Germany even after the Holocaust, as Polish Jewish survivors in Germany were often confronted with anti-Semites, seeing them as criminals. Therefore, he claimed that the German press, which was very afraid of anti-Semitism after the Holocaust, never reported Frankfurt Yiddish on purpose, because the Frankfurt Jews engaging in cabarets of all kinds could be seen as the embodiment of the worst anti-Semitic myths. There were actual Yiddish speakers who were actually sexually exploiting German women. So just to wrap it up, I would just say that the Yiddish of Frankfurt's underworld was silenced by the post-war German sentiments, because the German ideology not unlike the Zionist one, also highlighted the passivity and the morality of the victims. And the unexplored Yiddish of the Frankfurt Jews did not only entail an interesting history and a unique lexicon, it also challenges both Zionist and German perceptions of the aftermath of the Holocaust. Thank you very much.